Hello and a warm welcome to our fortnightly show, The Pulse, that gets you issues impacting the society. I'm Neelu Vyas. While we are still celebrating and rejoicing the resounding electoral victory of the Narendra Modi government, 2019 election has broken another record, and that is, for the first time in the history of Indian Parliament, 78 women MPs will be part of the Lok Sabha, which comprises a little more than 14%. There has been an incremental increase in the representation of women in politics, but the pace is far from satisfactory given the fact that the bill on 33% reservation for women is still pending. What are the factors that drive women into politics? What are the hurdles and barriers which keep them at bay from winning or contesting? And how can we improve the representation of women in the political sphere? Joining me now is Aparajita Sarangi, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha, BJP. She's won her election from Bhubaneswar. She's been an IS officer and has been the administrative face of Odisha. I welcome you on the program. Next to her, you will find Sunita Duggal. She's Member of Parliament again from BJP. She's won her elections from Sirsa. She's been an Indian Revenue Officer who's defeated Congress's Ashok Tawar. I welcome you, Sunita, on the program. Next to her, you would find Agatha Sangma. She's not a newcomer to politics. She's been part of the UPA government. She's won her elections from Thura. I welcome you, Agatha, on the program. And next to her is another popular face on TV channels, political analyst Manisha Priyam. I welcome you also on the program. And I would also like to welcome this beautiful audience which is joining me here on the program. And I expect some good questions from you all, which you will throw at the panelists. But my first question to begin the program with you, Aparajita, is that a lot of media focus was there while you were campaigning, given the fact that, you know, it was like an IS officer versus the IPS battle which was seen in Bhubaneswar. But my question to you is that you're coming into politics. What is the major reason which actually drove you?
It's a very good question. In fact, I have been answering this for quite some time now. I was in the IS and I had been given the best of postings, so there's nothing to crib about. There is no reason as to why, I would leave IAS and come into politics. I had completed almost 25 years of service. I was Joint Secretary here in Delhi in the Ministry of Rural Development, and I was handling MGNREGS, the largest anti-poverty program of the world. So there was no reason why I should have got out. There was no push factor. But when you put in so many years of service, suddenly I started feeling that I was operating, or I had been operating, in a very limited environment.
Okay.
You want to do something bigger. You want to connect with people. If you stand on a larger canvas, larger platform, there is a larger horizon, then you'll be able to connect more and impact a huge number of lives. As an IAS officer, you are bound by the rules and regulations, and you are bound by the conduct of government servants' rules. So I just thought that politics would be providing me with a bigger canvas, one. And number two, with all humility, I would say that these 25 years, I have always been a very pro-people officer, if I can say that for myself. And I wanted to connect with people on a larger scale. I wanted to render public service. And I strongly believe in the fact that politics is the biggest medium of public service.
Okay.
So I have come to politics for rendering public service and connect with people as much as I can.
And let me interrupt you and ask you that before this, you don't have any political lineage in the family, anybody who's been in politics?
Not at all. My parents were teachers, not at all, nobody.
Okay, so we'll come back with more questions. Sunita, your experience of winning elections from Sirsa, such a high-profile constituency, and defeating a person like Ashok Tawar, and also with an Indian Revenue Service background, what is it? How has the journey been for you?
Actually, in the same way as Aparajita has already told you, I was very much associated with so many charitable trusts, so many charitable associations, institutions like Ramkishan Mission. When I was posted in Chandigarh, Panchkula side, at that time I was associated with Ramkishan Mission. Swami Bharmeshanandji, Dr. Swami Bharmeshanandji, he was the chief at that time. So adult education, blanket distribution, and blood donation camps, medical camps, I was associated with all these things. So in the same way, as she was saying, that I was also just thinking that in case if you just want to do something in a bigger way, so then it's only, I think politics is the way. which provide you a big platform to do something for the people. So
and you also don't come from a family of politicians.
Not at all. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Agatha, as we all know, your father, Mr. Sangma, was a renowned politician. So, do you feel that you had the advantage when you went to the grassroots, when you talked amongst the people? You had this advantage with you that people had already been looking up to your father.
That's definitely a factor, and I cannot deny it. In fact, I'm so proud of it because it is a very big shoe to fill into. Yet, I believe that a lot of people see a reflection of him in me. And in many ways, my election campaign, my election mandate has to do with the fact that I am P.A. Sangma's daughter. But at the same time, I enjoy and I really believe that this is one of the best ways, as my colleagues have just talked about. I truly believe it is a very important platform under which you can work for the people. And even though I belong to a political background, I too have struggles as a woman, as a person who wants to make a mark in politics, who wants to do public service. I have my set of challenges too, even though, yes, it may appear that, belonging to a political background, you do have certain benefits.
Manisha, do you really see this as some kind of a watershed moment? Because for the first time in the history of Parliament, we see 78 women lawmakers inside Lok Sabha. Do we really see this as some kind of a watershed moment?
So let me first start by congratulating Sunita ji, Aparajita ji and Agatha ji for having made it to what I call the biggest panchayat of India. And unlike them, maybe somewhat common to Agatha, I was actually born to a watershed moment. I was born to politics. And I used to be very upset that, why are my parents in politics? I would hide it at school because, everybody else had professionals as parents. And then one day my father told me that have the courage, go and tell them that, look, I couldn't choose my father. The last thing I could choose was my father's profession. But if you want to be different, then say no to what we are doing. And why was it so difficult then? My schooling, English medium schooling started when the emergency was launched in India. And I didn't know that my father's best friends were all opponents of the emergency. The uncle who came by night was George Fernandez. He was arrested the next day and I opened the newspaper and I said, oh my God. And I was all of maybe 7 or 8. We would have these big discussions, many politicians, many of whom went on to become prime ministers of India. But by the time I was growing up, I was beginning to feel that these changes, so emergency was one. The next watershed moment was the Bofors moment. And I found my father saying, no, we've got to raise our voices against corruption. So I'd see him take a second-class train to Delhi, hook up with people here, stay in small hotels in Paharganj. But I didn't know that when you're carrying the voice of people, when you're carrying an ideology with you, power breaks. So really, the lesson that I learned from my father's career was that it is the voice of people that is most important. And you need to stick to your ideology. He was still alive. We would have these big debates saying, you go into politics, and I would say, no, academics is my career. We took 2 different pathways. I left home, went off to the London School of Economics. Now, did whatever I did, वो कोई बड़प्पन की बात नहीं है. पर वापस आके मुझे एक चीज़ दिखा बस, और वो एक फ़र्क. I don't propagate or promote the West, but the one difference that I see is that we are still far behind in the race to put women in leadership positions.
Right.
And the one thing that power fears still, as you see in this mandate, it doesn't even fear caste. But the one thing that it still fears is women. Forget politics. If in the other rounds, I'll tell you about many more things. There's a paper that I've done for Brookings, and that will tell you that the biggest and strongest representation of women has actually happened in the Constituent Assembly of India, here in the same parliament when the Constitution was being written. And many of whom were very important people whose names I will take in the subsequent rounds. और कुछ तो ऐसी महिलाएं थीं जो अमेरिका के प्रेसिडेंट की पत्नी एलेनोर रूजवेल्ट को 48 में जब यूनिवर्सल डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स बन रहा था, तो भारत की कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली की एक महिला थी जिन्होंने ऐसा डराया उनको कि यूडीएचआर के टर्म्स में अमेंडमेंट हुआ. So what I see is that watershed moments are still to come, And
Okay.
one of those moments that's still to come is to stop fearing women power, to be able
Absolutely.
to conceptualize it.
Right.
And I'm happy to be in the august company of such stellar women who are not stellar, people who, I ran away from politics. They stood and said, no, we'll take it by the,
Who
by
knows,
the neck.
Manisha, who knows, your moment also would come soon.
No, I don't want, I made a choice many years ago not to do it. So
Okay.
that's a choice to make. And
Okay.
I'm very happy with that choice.
Okay, before I go to my panelists again, one question which I would really want the audience to answer, and that is that when there is a woman politician, what are the qualities which you actually look for in a woman as a politician?
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम सविता चड्डा है। जैसा कि मैडम ने कहा, मैं आप सबको बहुत बधाई देती हूँ इस बहुत अच्छी जीत पर और राजनीति में प्रवेश पर। अभी बहुत सारी जैसे बातें हुई और भी होंगी। मैं ये सोचती हूँ कि जब महिलाएं राजनीति में आती हैं तो उन्हें एक बात का विशेष रूप से ध्यान रखना चाहिए। आप मुझसे बहुत बड़ी भी हो सकती हैं, पर मैं भी बड़े होने के नाते, लेखिका होने के नाते एक संदेश एक आपको कहना चाहती हूँ कि संस्कारों की बात हम करते हैं तो महिलाओं में संस्कार और संस्कृति हमेशा बनी रहे राजनीति में, ये मैं आप लोगों से कहना चाहती हूँ। कुछ भी हो जाए, आपको धैर्य नहीं खोना। कोई आपको उकसाए कुछ बुरी बात कहने के लिए, आपको रिएक्ट नहीं करना। आपको शांत रहकर उस दुश्मन को समाप्त करना है और अपनी भाषा पर नियंत्रण रखना है, तो ही हमारी महिलाओं का सम्मान जीवित रह सकेगा।
ये बात आपने बिल्कुल सही कही, and I'm sure the newly elected legislators would carry this lesson when they enter into the August House. But my question to you is, and also the young boys who are sitting at the back, would like to hear from you that what are the qualities which you look for in a woman politician? That was my question. Thank you. You can just pass on the mic, please.
मेरा नाम सोनू कुमार है। अर्पिता मैम से मेरा एक सवाल है। मैम एक आईएएस ऑफिसर रह चुकी हैं उड़ीसा में। इन्होंने बताया कि मैं पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन की, एक आईएएस ऑफिसर rather than आईएएस ऑफिसर थी। मेरा बस मैम से ये सवाल है कि क्या मैम एक आईएएस ऑफिसर बेटर है या एक एमपी बेटर है? एक आईएएस ऑफिसर को क्या रिस्ट्रिक्ट किया जाता है समाज में? तो अगर
बहुत ही अच्छा प्रश्न है ये। देखिए, मैंने कहा कि जब आप आईएएस ऑफिसर होते हैं तो आप एक सीमित वातावरण में काम करते हैं। अगर आप अर्थ सचिव हैं तो आप स्वास्थ्य के बारे में बात नहीं कर सकते हैं। अगर आप स्वास्थ्य के सचिव हैं तो आप एजुकेशन या शिक्षा के बारे में बात नहीं कर सकते हैं। तो सीमाएं होती हैं। एक दूसरा, आप बहुत लोगों के ज़िंदगी को एक साथ प्रभावित नहीं कर सकते हैं अगर आप आईएएस ऑफिसर हैं। मैं 25 साल थी आईएएस ऑफिसर और मेरी खुशकिस्मती है कि मैंने बड़े चैलेंजिंग पोस्ट किए हैं, बड़े अच्छी पोस्टिंग्स मुझे मिली है, बड़े चैलेंजिंग, जो विद इन कोट्स मेन को मिलते हैं, उन सब पोस्टिंग्स में मैं थी। लेकिन मुझे, जैसा मैंने कहा कि 25 साल के बाद मुझे लगा कि राजनीति में जाना चाहिए। लोक सेवा का सबसे बड़ा माध्यम है। मैं आपको बता दूं, 5 महीने हुए हैं मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी में आई, चुनाव लड़ा और अभी मैं एमपी हूँ। मुझे बड़ा ही अच्छा लग रहा है और इन दोनों का कंपैरिजन नहीं हो सकता है।
Okay.
वो भी लोक सेवा का एक माध्यम है, लेकिन वहाँ वातावरण रेस्ट्रिक्टेड है और यहाँ जो है ये पूरा पैमाना, पूरी दुनिया आपकी है। आप, जैसा कि मैडम ने अभी कहा, मैं एक मत हूँ कि अगर मर्यादित तरीके से हम व्यवहार करते हैं तो दुनिया अपनी है, संसार अपना है और बहुत लोगों की ज़िंदगी को हम प्रभावित कर सकते हैं, बट अपने व्यवहार को थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना है।
माय नेम इज़ अभिषेक पाल। मैम, आई थिंक हम वो ढूंढते हैं जो मेल एमपीज़ में हमें नहीं मिल पाता है। जो मेल एमपीज़ की टिपिकल मेंटालिटी होती है, रॉ और क्रूड तरीके से किसी भी इशू को हैंडल करने की, वो जो हम एक तो उसमें एक अदर पर्सपेक्टिव लेके आना, उसके लिए आप एक नई सोच, और वो कई मुद्दों पे कई लोगों से ज़्यादा रिलेट कर पाती है क्योंकि उनकी वो सेंसिटिव साइड ज़्यादा एक्टिव होती है रैदर अ मेल साइड, क्योंकि उनकी अपब्रिंगिंग वैसी हुई होती है। तो जो चीज़ें हमें मेल एमपीज में नहीं मिल पाती है, जो फैक्टर्स वो लैक करते हैं, वो
आप महिला नेता में ढूंढते हो। ओके, एनी अदर पॉइंट व्हिच एनीबडी? यस, जस्ट पास ऑन द माइक प्लीज।
Hi, I'm Roli Malhotra. I'm a poetess by nature and entrepreneur by business. So, what I would want to add with that he said very correctly that we have the sensitive side, the women politician, they have the sensitive side also to deal with. But along with that, I just want, because I personally idolize Smriti Irani, so I just want that strength, that assertiveness, and that knowledge while you speak. That you should not just lay down on the fact that I'm just women, and when somebody says something to me I get back. So I just want that strength and power to speak.
Okay, strength and power to speak. Any other point? Then I go to the panelists. Yes.
मैं भारती अग्रवाल अभी पीछे मिशन मोदी अगेन की दिल्ली प्रदेश अध्यक्षा रही थी हूँ और लिखती हूँ राष्ट्रवाद और संस्कारों पर। अभी जैसे उन्होंने बताया कि हम महिलाओं में क्या देखते हैं, अभी मेरा पूरी दिल्ली में घूमना हुआ, अधिकतर महिलाओं को ना पता ही नहीं कि हमारे राइट्स क्या हैं या हमें कैसे काम निकलवाना है। हम उनको बोलते भी है ना कि आप वोट देने जाना, तो वो बोलते हैं कि अरे हमें कौन से काम निकलवाने हैं, हस्बैंड है ना देख लेंगे, वो जिसको कहेंगे ना हम वोट दे देंगे। तो यदि हमारी एमपीज़ महिला इलेक्ट होती हैं, एक तो हमें कुछ पता चलता है, अच्छा अब वो हमारे में से निकल के बाहर गए हैं, तो हम भी मोटिवेट होते हैं कि भाई हमें अपने राइट्स के लिए खड़ा होना है और हम थोड़ा इजीली अप्रोच कर पाते हैं एक महिला एमपी से, रादर देन कि यदि हम किसी मेल एमपी के पास गए, उसने कुछ डिमांड कर दी, कुछ कह दिया, तो यहाँ पे एक सेफर साइड होती है और एक विश्वास होता है कि वो हमारी प्रॉब्लम समझेंगी एज ए वुमेन।
आपने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट उठाया कि आप ज़्यादा एक्सपेक्टेशंस रखते हो, एंड इफ़ यू लुक एट द डेटा प्राजिता, आउट ऑफ एवरी 10 legislator 9 are men. I was looking at a data which was released by the United Nations which says so which means obviously more expectations from women, and one by one I will come to you that how do you really break the clutter then? When there is so much of expectation from the people here, you've just heard them, they say that they have more expectations, they feel that women will be more sensitive. So as a politician, you really take this up as a challenge, but what are the problems which you really face when you are implementing things on the ground?
See, getting into a glass house is in itself a challenge. Once you come to public sphere, you are ready to take all the bouquets and the brickbats together. I mean, I can talk about myself. I took a good deal of time deciding that I would be coming to politics, because, you just open the door. You just open the door and anybody can come and, throw something at you. I think any woman who gets into politics and who is not pushed into politics, it is her decision. I think she comes with that kind of strength in herself. Like, I'm very much aware of the fact that today, while I'm receiving lots of bouquets because I have been elected, tomorrow if something goes wrong somewhere or I don't perform as much as I should, people would be hurling stones at me. Right. So I'm ready for that. But the point is, whether I'm able to handle myself, whether I'm able to handle my work sphere properly or not. And I would definitely not say that I'm anyway competing with men. We are complementary to each other. Let's not get into that. There are 9 men, I say, but they're all very good men also. So I think we all should be positive. We should have positive outlook. And there also are counterparts. We should not be in the race of increasing the number of women in the parliament. It's good. Right. 78 at this time. It's very good. It will increase further. But it's not something that we should be actually, focusing on all the time. Right. It's good that they have come. We welcome them. But at the same time, I would say that there is a lot of, the one thing that a woman politician should have is, or even a male politician should have is, he or she should be polite but very assertive. Right. Very assertive.
But Sunita, what I want to ask you is that there is a feeling and there is a perception like that, for women, politics is a very difficult job. That is, like wading into the choppy waters. How would you really break this perception? And what are the actual problems which you really face as a politician, which probably the men would not?
Actually, you're right that the people, they just used to say that politics is not a cup of tea for a woman particularly. Yeah. But I think now the perception has been changed. We are talking about 33%, but in Haryana, 48%, more than 48% representatives are there, like sarpanches, block samiti chairmen, and and they feel comfortable in case like they think that I'm MP from their area. They feel very comfortable. Even their husband feel very comfortable that you can go to her and you can discuss, you can ask, and they feel like that they are comfortable with if women are there, then they are comfortable with each other. So the problem is this only the society is like this, it's a man dominating, you can say. So that's why they just sometimes they feel like that if women are coming in the politics, so they are coming, not for, they are not having some certain, some goals. They are just coming for the sake of, you can say, glamorous world, or you can say just just to get herself get popular. So that's why this is like something. But nowadays I feel like that there are so many women are there and they are proving themselves. Like we can talk about Sushma ji, Samriti ji. There are so many politicians who have proved themselves. So now the perception has been changed, and that was the problem earlier, but it's not nowadays. It's, it's not a big
you
problem
say that
nowadays.
the perception is now changing.
Yes.
But Agatha, you come from Meghalaya, which is a society which is matrilineal.
Yes.
So I would not go into the problems which Sunita has just discussed, but on the ground, what are the problems which you are facing?
Well, like you said, my problems compared to my other colleagues' problems would be totally different perhaps, because I do have the advantage of belonging to a matrilineal society. And for the audience, I would just like to say that a matrilineal society is where women inherit the property, the family property. So the property of the house or of the parents pass on to the youngest daughter of the family. And so financially, in my constituency, in my tribe, women have a lot more financial advantage as compared to other women in the country. And I think that is again one of the reasons why we do not find a lot of women participating in politics, because we are quite comfortable in our, in our little life, where we take care of our own businesses, we take care of our families, and therefore many women don't opt for being actively involved in politics. My challenges have always obviously been the fact that I belong to a political background. So I think my challenge really is fitting into the big shoes or the expectations that people have always had. My father has been a member of parliament from Tura for over 30 years. He has never lost an election.
And you will always be compared with what your father has done.
I will always be compared with him. So I have a very big shoe to fit into. And the only thing I can offer is my humility, my good intentions, and my hard work.
Right.
I can never be somebody else. I cannot be like a man, or I cannot be like another woman. I can be myself and I can give my best. And that is the entire reason why I'm here.
But isn't this, Manisha, a little dichotomous situation where you see that more and more political parties are talking about empowering of women? You look at the women voters, the huge voter turnout which we saw in 2014, it has increased phenomenally this year. But the representation of women, that is not taking off much. What according to you is the biggest reason?
So basically that tells you that in the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, the covenants with respect to egalitarianism are being now combined with the covenants with respect to liberty, and it means therefore that women have used the arena of voice to push egalitarianism of their own and where they can do it. And therefore the fairness of the Indian electoral process has actually encouraged women, because nobody is stopping you from going to the booth. Even your husband cannot tell you that don't do this. So in a country where sunrise and sunset laws largely define the public sphere, अंधेरे होने के बाद बाहर मत जाना, अब ये तुम्हारी सेफ्टी के लिए बता रही हूँ. अभी आप कविता में भी समझा रही हैं कि कैसे तुम नेगोशिएट, अरे सामने वाला नेगोशिएट करे, मैं तो महिला हूँ, वो मुझे परेशान करता है, मैं ही क्यों नेगोशिएशन का लेसन लेके दुनिया को डील करूँ. Fearlessness has to be the way ahead for women, and I think we have failed our women. It's the women who are queuing up at the booths and turning. From independence up until now, there has been a whopping near 50% increase, and this time around women have almost equaled men to be able to come and put the vote there. So look at women taking even that single small act seriously. Who are we as educated women to tell them, now knit a sweater, learn the craft of negotiation? We'll do that if you make us diplomats, but we won't do this. Now India has been spectacular and singular also in the fact that in our public services, for example, if a woman was to become a foreign secretary, for example, there was nothing that stopped her. But where is it that we haven't done very well? And that needs to be understood. So the patronage of the state has been on the one side egalitarian. It's a social sphere that needs to be looked at. Right. When I look at textbooks for children, for example, I find that to the northern side of India, which is the divide of the Vindhyas, the last big Hindi poetess was somebody called Mahadevi Verma.
Right.
Right? Now, who's the big? I'm sure all of you are writing poetry, but tell me that one big Hindi poetess that you read. So we have to think about, we also get obsessed with politics. Since as you can see, I started with politics and I've decided to have that healthy line where I stay in and stay out. Why is it that we are obsessed only with performance in certain spheres? Why are women, as also men, not interrogating these other spheres? And the story that I've held back, there'll be two stories that I'll tell you, is of a lady called Hansa Mehta. Now, she started her career, she goes with Gopal Krishna Gokhale, etc. She meets here in Delhi at the All India Women's Conference. There was a group of women, it wasn't Nehru here. By 1927, they were saying that we need to have a focus on education for women. And they said if we don't do this, then we won't have teacher training, we won't have good families. For development, we need higher education. And their power was such that Nehru was forced to listen to them. Hansa Mehta became a member of the Constituent Assembly here. It was she who was sent to the UN when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was being signed. It was she who, when Eleanor Roosevelt passed the motion saying rights of man, she said, hello, rights of humans. And that is the starting point. And when I've read, it was a poignant moment for me when in Washington, DC at the Library of the Congress, I was reading this and there was a footnote about her which says, and this is the nuance of English which says, this rather feisty woman, which means therefore, उन्होंने बहुत अड़ के लड़ाई की, हिंदी में इसका यही मतलब है. And I remember still that it was a cold DC morning, but I had a glint of tear in my eye as to what it must have taken this feisty woman in 1948 to have stood to the might of the wife of the American president, leading. And that was a time when all of the third world was becoming independent. So we need to celebrate womanhood in its many spheres. We need to understand that this moment today of egalitarian participation is not coming from the likes of me. It's coming from the likes of them who are queuing up at polling booths.
Absolutely.
So the significance of this moment is not simply for the parliament.
Right.
It's an immense moment. And its variety must be understood. केवल वही जंतर मंतर ये वो आप लोग पार्लियामेंटेरियंस हैं, मैं बताती हूँ इनके बड़े काम हैं. और ये अगर जो इनके पास जितने नाले शिकायत चिट्ठियाँ आएंगे नहीं, अगर वो मैं दूसरी दफ़ा कभी बताऊंगी, इनकी ज़िंदगी आसान नहीं है और ना होने वाली है. लेकिन ये हमारा काम है कि हमारे लिए इस मोमेंट का सिग्निफिकेंस क्या है. हम क्या एक एवरेज हैं केवल कि हम यहाँ से यहाँ बढ़ गए. ये कोई लिनियर रेट ऑफ ग्रोथ नहीं है कि पिछले बार 30 था तो इस बार 35 हो जाएगा. हम कोई अर्थव्यवस्था नहीं है. इस पार्टिसिपेशन के पीछे सोच का बदलता हुआ महकमा है और उत्तर भारत में ऐसा होना बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है.
But now to introspect the reasons within the individual political parties. Now, say for example, we had an example of BJD, Biju Janata Dal, which decided to give 33% seats, to the women candidates. For example, BJP also gave a lot of tickets to the women candidates this time. More than 50 candidates were given tickets, and out of which I think 32 or 34 have won this time. So what about the voluntary quota system within the party? How does that work? Individually, I'll come to you one by one and then come to Manisha on this. Will that work, or we'll keep waiting for the 33% reservation bill which we are talking about? Why can't we start it at the individual party level? How does it function?
See, if you ask me, I would be saying something which may not be very much palatable to the audience or to my colleagues here. I am not very much in favor of any kind of reservation for women as such. I would like to have an environment where women can actually prosper, bloom and grow. Right? Let us not think that they are weak. They are very strong from within. Women are much more strong than men. And in fact, if they are given the conducive environment, if they are given the right kind of support, they can just touch the stars. Sky is the limit for such women. So I think let us not make them feel weak by giving them any kind of quota. So
you don't favor the quota system?
I would say that let's give them a fair ground to play on. And women can beat anybody, so to say.
Right.
I have great confidence in women. And let me honestly tell you, I'm just taking a little bit of your time. Women are extremely competent, powerful, and they are game changers. I realized this when I was campaigning. I was the head of the Mission Shakti movement in my state, the self-help group, for 4 years when I was in the IAS, about 2003 onwards. That time, honestly, I did not realize. I thought they were all behind the doors. But here, this time I realized that these women are game changers. 50% of the population is women, as she rightly said. If they don't conscientiously vote and they don't vote right, we are going to lose. So it's always better to ensure that the voters, women as voters, I'm not saying women as leaders there, people like us sitting here. I'm talking of general women must be capacitated enough to take the right kind of decisions for choosing the right kind of person for his or her constituency.
Right. That's what the question was, that since women are becoming a very potential decisive factor within any political party, or if you look at the overall general scenario of any election, women are becoming a decisive force. But how do you change the system within? Not all political parties are doing that. Of course, Aparajita has her own view that she's not in favor of any quota. But what happens if the environment is a little delayed? Do you still not offer them quota? Do you still not offer them that kind of an advantage where you have a certain number of seats which are reserved for women? What is your view on that?
I think, I believe in both the things. She's also right that quality must be there in case of we are talking about quantity. Quantity matters, but quality is important. So in case if there are so many women MPs are there, but they are not, delivering properly in the way they should. So, that is not important, that if quantity is increasing. So, but on the other way, I'm just also feeling like in case in Haryana, just I'm talking about, there is reservation for panchayats and block samiti chairman and Jila Parishad chairman, and there are so many women are there, and they are delivering in a good way. So, sometimes it feels like if we allow them, if we just say that reservation is there, and by this way or that way, the men are bound to, that their wives or their daughter or their, some lady should come forward. So in that way, if they are giving chances, then they really perform well and they really deliver in a good way. So I do believe in this, that there should be a reservation for the women, and when they come forward and they really deliver good.
And you feel that it can begin at the individual party level. I think that, will that work?
Yeah.
According to you?
Yeah.
That will.
Yeah.
Okay. Agatha, what's your view on this? The voluntary quota system within the party, because not all parties are doing it.
Yes. Again, I would agree with both my colleagues here, because it is a fact that we need to be, giving a situation where people have the choice, to contest, or they have the right circumstances, or a situation where they can be given a chance to contest. So basically, what happens in a place like India is that many women don't get to that point where they get that opportunity. I agree completely with Madam, where she says, Madam Aparajita, where she says that basically we should not have a quota system, because we should be able to bring a situation where women are capacitated, or the public is capacitated to choose the right person. I agree with that completely, but I truly believe that for us to get to that point, maybe we require a certain kind of a push, and perhaps a kind of a quota system would allow more women to have that platform. Right. Because to be able to prove yourself, to be able to be your best capacity, you first need to be put in that situation where you can at least be heard.
Absolutely.
And that is not being, in this current situation, that is a very, very difficult place.
In fact, parties like Trinamool, they've given more than 40% seats to the women this time. So what do you really see this as a biggest enabling measure? I mean, forget the bill, probably that would take some time, which of course is a requirement. But do you see this as an enabling measure, the voluntary quota
So I'd first
system?
like to actually commend all the three members of parliament for saying that, look, we don't need the quota, and that tells you that women who come up to leadership positions such as this are so confident of who they are that they've probably made double careers in their lives, and they've worked so hard at making a mark in who they are first. Agatha is not telling you, but I know very well that she's qualified as a lawyer and had a good career there as, at the point that she was in. But the fact that women like to tell you less about themselves, they want to be modest, और कंधे से कंधा मिला के तो चल ही रही हैं. तो इस वजह से, इस ह्यूमिलिटी की वजह से, I think this answer is coming. But once again, I tell you that my experience in the West tells me that at half their career and qualification, they would have been considered for these roles. Moment you come back to India, the steeplechase is so much higher for women. You know, for example, when I'm interviewed for leadership positions here in India, which I've decided to be here for a while, and I laugh at it. And then people tell me, oh, your mind is that of a researcher, you can't take up an administrative role. And the fact is that when I leave the parent institution where I was, it simply wouldn't have been a problem for me to be a researcher and an academic administrator. So here I find the nuanced ways. बहुत आप औरतों को नेगोशिएशन सिखा रही हैं, हमको तो मर्दों से सीखना चाहिए कि कितने अच्छे तरीके से वो महिलाओं को बताते हैं कि देखिए अब किस तरीके से आपको तो you should write books. Many of people often tell me. Then I tell them that, have you seen my CV? I've actually written a lot of books. Just that you can't get a lot of it because it's lot of dense academics, etc. फिर वो देखते कहते आप कुछ पॉपुलर लिखिए, इसमें ना बहुत अर्थशास्त्रीय ज्ञान दे दिया है. तो फिर मैं उनको बतलाती हूँ कि आपको किस भाषा में पॉपुलर चाहिए. अंग्रेजी चाहते हैं कि हिंदी? तो फिर नहीं, तो मैं बताती हूँ कि देखिए इंग्लिश का हर नेशनल डेली में मैं लिखती हूँ. फिर वो बोलते नहीं, लोग नहीं पढ़ पाते, हिंदी में लिखिए. फिर मैंने उनको एक दिन बताया कि हिंदी का आप कौन सा अखबार चुनना चाहते हैं. कोई 200-400 ऑपेड्स लिखने के बाद भी. Now this is a problem of acceptance.
And you keep on customizing it according to the expectations of the people.
Yeah, and I will just give you a counter example to this, a real small example. एक बैंक है जिसको इंटर अमेरिकन डेवलपमेंट बैंक बुलाते हैं. तो क्षेत्रीय स्तर पे कोऑपरेशन डेवलपमेंट के लिए जो होता है, तो लातिन अमेरिका के रीजन के जो राष्ट्र हैं, they go to the IADB. So I was helping one particular government in India to build a knowledge collaboration with IADB. I won't get into the technical part of it. And the chief of the IADB was a former finance minister of the government of Mexico. He's an economist. He was Santiago Levy. He was leading this. And when we went to see him, we were being accompanied. There's a program there called Progressa. उसमें आशा वर्कर्स जैसे हमारे यहाँ होती है ना, वैसे एक आशा वर्कर हमारे साथ जा रही थी, हमको एस्कॉर्ट कर रही थी. First thing Santiago did when he saw her, it a concha. और गले मिलके एक इकोनॉमिस्ट एक आशा वर्कर को ग्रीट करता है. एंड द डिग्नेटरीज विथ मी इन द इंडियन डेलीगेशन, बिकॉज आई एम एन एकेडमिक आई कैन टेक लिबर्टीज. आई सेड, सर, यू नो व्हाट, वी हैव कम हियर टू लर्न द टेक्निकल पार्ट, लेट्स लर्न दिस फर्स्ट. सो दैट्स इट. सो द स्पिरिट ऑफ egalitarianism today, I see it far more in countries that democratized later than us, the Latin American countries, for example. And therefore, I always feel that as much as my esteemed women members of parliament, I look at them with respect, with awe and admiration, but I feel the level playing ground will not be made till the time that we pitch for pushing that barrier of inequality, which unfortunately is being perpetrated by, sorry to say it,
you
by
made
men.
a very important point that, there are so many factors, which are driving. But any political party, I'm not taking names here, but if you ask the heads that, why you didn't give tickets to the women, the first and the general answer which really comes about is that winnability dekh rahe the, winning capacity dekh rahe the. So how potential is the winnability factor, which really overrides on all other factors? Your intelligence is forgotten, your other capabilities are forgotten, but winnability becomes the prime factor.
No, but why do we think that women will not have winnability?
That's the answer.
I mean, why should we say that? I mean, I fail to understand. I mean, a woman can be very capable, and yet, and at the same time, she can be having that particular potential. So she can ensure that the seats are won for the party. See, ultimately, you have to look at things from the point of view of a politician also, or a political party also.
Okay.
They need to come to power, so they need to win the seats. So definitely they'll go for candidates who can get them seats. What's wrong with that?
Absolutely.
And I think women are capable, will be capable enough, and they are getting capable enough to have that winnability potential. Things are changing. In fact, as you were discussing this particular part, I was reminded of my collectorship days, when suddenly you have somebody in the grievance cell, and you ask who is the person, and there would be a woman with a man. And the man would start talking about the problems of the area, and then you will ask, who are you? He'll say, कि मैं सरपंच का पति हूँ. So this sarpanch pati system has to go, right? ये MP पति ना हो. I always tell my husband, you keep away.
Okay, on that note, I think before I come to the final round of questions, let me go to the audience. A lot of young ladies who are sitting here. How do you see politics as a career option? We've seen many career options. Examples are sitting here. You've seen Manisha there as one example. Then you have the professions like medicine, engineering. But how do you really see politics as a profession? If you have to ask your daughters or if you have to venture into a career like politics, how would you really see that?
नमस्कार और सबको बधाई. और मेरा नाम है शशि पांडे. कुछ पूछने से कहने से पहले 2 लाइनें पढ़ना चाहूँगी सभी महिलाओं की तरफ से. सोचा था जो मैंने ठौर ये वो तो नहीं, मंजिलें कहीं और हैं, उसूल मेरे कम तो नहीं. मिले हैं पंख तो आसमां में उड़ूं, सोचा है जो क्यों ना मेरे मन की करूं. रंग गुलाबी सा है मेरे सपनों का, इन सपनों से मैं आसमां भरूं, अपना आसमां भरूं. सोचा था जो मैंने ये ठौर वो नहीं, मंजिल है कहीं और, उसूल मेरे कम तो नहीं.
वाओ, वेरी नाइस, ब्यूटीफुल. पर आपने वो सवाल नहीं, आपने मेरे सवाल का जवाब नहीं दिया.
सवाल पे मैं आती हूँ कि मेरा आप तीनों से है कि अगर कोई सामान्य परिवार या सामान्य जगह से कोई महिला है तो वो किस तरीके से अपना करियर, अगर वो चाहती है कि मैं इस राजनीति में आऊँ या पॉलिटिशियन ज्वाइन करूँ, तो वो किस तरीके से अपना करियर बना सकते हैं. या हम अपने बच्चों को, या जैसे मेरी बेटी है, मैं चाहूँ कि उसको मैं पॉलिटिशियन बनाऊँ, तो क्या मैं ये सोच सकती हूँ क्या बनाया जाना चाहिए उसको एज ए कैरियर?
सुनीता, आई वुड लाइक यू टू आंसर.
नहीं, एक्चुअली ना ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा रीज़न था मेरे पॉलिटिक्स में आने का कि व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू गो स्कूल्स कॉलेजेस में एज अ चीफ गेस्ट उसमें जाते, तो मैं बच्चों को बोलती थी कि वे बच्चे अपना हैंड रेज करो, कितने बच्चे IAS बनना चाहते हैं. सो मेनी चिल्ड्रन दे जस्ट यूज टू रेज देयर हैंड्स. कितने IPS, मैं कहा कितने बच्चे पॉलिटिशियन. एक भी बच्चा हाथ नहीं खड़ा करता था, तो मुझे बहुत दुख लगता था.
यहाँ पर भी इस चीज को टेस्ट कर लेते हैं. कितने लोग ऑनेस्टली पॉलिटिक्स में जाना चाहते हैं,
उनका माइंडसेट एंड इन द सेम वे शी इज टॉकिंग अबाउट. मतलब माइंडसेट ऐसा हो गया पॉलिटिक्स के लिए कि पॉलिटिक्स का नाम आते ही आपके माइंड में, जैसे इवन पिक्चर्स में क्या दिखाते हैं कि जैसे पॉलिटिशियन नजर आएगा एकदम से करप्ट बिल्कुल, और अगर मैन है तो चारों तरफ से जो है वो लेडीज हैं उसके घेर रखा है उसको. तो बड़ा मतलब मेरे माइंड में बड़ा एकदम से ये लगा कि क्या मतलब हम इंडिया जो है हमारा किस तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं हम लोग. हमारे बच्चे पॉलिटिक्स से इतनी नफरत करने लगे. तो दिस वाज वन ऑफ द रीजन कि मेरे को था, मैंने कहा कि भी पॉलिटिक्स में आके प्रूव करना है कि आप अपने वैल्यूज के साथ, एक आइडियोलॉजी के साथ भी आप पॉलिटिक्स कर सकते हो विद डिग्निटी, विद रिस्पेक्ट. तो जो बिल्कुल ठीक है आपकी बात. तो आप तो बहुत आ रही हैं, जितनी जो हमारी महिलाएं हैं जो मैंने आपको बताया, जैसे तो मेरा उनसे बहुत इंटरेक्शन रहता है, रादर कि दे शुड फील कंफर्टेबल. और वो जैसे इन्होंने सरपंच प्रतिनिधि की बात की, तो अब सच में उनको कहते हैं कि जी प्रतिनिधियों को बाहर बिठा के तब आप अंदर आइए. तो इट्स रियली बहुत चेंज हो रहा है इसमें, और अब सब पॉलिटिक्स की तरफ आ रहे हैं.
Someone else who's not spoken before.
पहले तो मैं आप तीनों को बधाई देती हूँ कि आप अपनी मर्जी से पॉलिटिक्स में आए. और अभी जैसे मैम ने कहा कि रिजर्वेशन नहीं होना चाहिए, अभी पीछे जो निगम के इलेक्शन हुए ना, मेरे पास नंबर ऑफ लिस्ट है उन लेडीज़ की जिन्होंने कभी अपने घर से बाहर कदम नहीं रखा और आज भी उनको मोबाइल तक हैंडल करने की परमिशन नहीं है. हस्बैंड का नाम था पॉलिटिक्स में, इसलिए उन्होंने अपनी वाइफ्स के नाम आगे प्रमोट कर दिया और उनको टिकट मिल गए. खाली बेस यही रहा कि भाई एक तो जीत जाएंगी और इनके हस्बैंड काम कर रहे हैं, तो इन महिलाओं को आने जाने जो असल में वर्कर्स हैं. मैंने 5 इयर्स की एज से बीजेपी का काम किया, लेकिन जब मेरे को डूसू में इलेक्शन लड़ने की बारी आई तो मेरे फादर ने कहा अपने कॉलेज तक की पॉलिटिक्स बहुत है. मैं विवेकानंद कॉलेज की CC रही, उन्होंने मुझे डूसू में नहीं जाने दिया.
Exactly the reason why I was asking
तो
that
वो
question.
बोलते कि आगे ना, क्योंकि मैं अग्रवाल फैमिली से बिलोंग करती हूँ, तो वो कहते हैं कि आगे रिश्ता नहीं होगा. वो कहेंगे अच्छा लड़की पॉलिटिशियन है, फिर तो वो घर बसा ही नहीं पाएगी.
मैं चाहूँगी कुछ और लोगों से भी बात करना इस पर कि आप पॉलिटिक्स को एज अ प्रोफेशन कैसे देखते हो.
आई एम मीना चौधरी फ्रॉम गुड़गांव. आई एम द जनरल सेक्रेटरी ऑफ महिला काव्य मंच. Although women are capable today in every field, but still they are judged today of their actions.
Right.
And there are very many reasons like domestic responsibilities, lack of financial clout. But coming into politics, women dread because there is a threat of character assassination too. So what do you think? How can we work on that? We still have a long way to go on women empowerment.
Okay, we'll have a quick view from all the three. Agatha, starting from you first.
I think we need to have a kinder world. It's in a very simple way, I would say, because many a times we're just looking to assassinate each other, you know, verbally, or
right.
you know, it's a very negative sort of an atmosphere that we have created. And it starts by just being a bit kinder to the world around you. And, you know, when I was campaigning for my elections, there was so much of criticism from the opposition. Everything was extremely negative, personal attacks at me. But I didn't take that as a negative thing, you know. I did not go back and say negative things about my opponents. Because at the end of the day, I'm here to do something which is, you know, which is important. I'm here because, as the gentleman here talked about, women are so much more sensitive about so many issues. As Madam Manisha was saying, there's a amazing quality about women is that we look at details, you know, things that probably many would not notice. Women notice that. So the fact that we can look into details, the fact that we are a lot more, you know, I don't know. I would just like to say that we are more. Once we come out of our shell, once we choose to be in whatever field, politics भी हो सकता है, आपकी profession में भी हो सकता है, you choose to come out, you become more confident of yourself and you become more accepting of yourself. So even the outside criticism doesn't
affect you much. But does that mean, Sunita, does that mean that जो सवाल उन्होंने किया कि अगर आप किसी की capability से match नहीं कर सकते, so the easiest tool you have is you start assassinating the character of the person and look, something is wrong within that lady, which is normal not only in politics but in every profession on the earth. But what is the message you would like to give for people like her, probably who want their daughters or who themselves want to come into politics? What is the message you would like to give?
Actually, it depends. In case if you are your soul satisfaction is much more important. In case if you are satisfied inside, like that you are going in a right way, you are doing right things, then you need not to bother about anybody. And people at large, they know each and everything. Women are, you know, they are micromanagers. वो तो बहुत बारीकी से, जैसा कि अभी गाथा ने कहा, रिसर्च करती हैं छोटी-छोटी. वो थोड़ा सा क्या करती हैं कि कुछ भी बोला तो उसको बहुत ज़्यादा, तो इसको जस्ट टेक इन अ वे कि अगर पर्टिकुलरली इफ इन केस यू आर इन अ पॉलिटिक्स, अदरवाइज तो ये सब हर फील्ड में है, किस फील्ड में नहीं है. दैट डिपेंड्स कि भाई आपकी अपनी डिग्निटी पर, अपने उस पर बहुत डिपेंड करता है. और लोगों को सब पता है कि कौन किस तरह से, किस रास्ते से, किस तरह से कहाँ जा रहा है. लोग हमसे ज़्यादा हमारे बारे में जानते हैं.
ये भी एक बहुत बड़ा मैसेज है.
हाँ, मैं आपको ऑनेस्टली बताना चाहती हूँ कि कई बार हमें लगता है कि अरे ये तो हमें अपने बारे में पता ही नहीं था. तो इसलिए जो है, अगर आपका अंदर से आप सेटिस्फाइड हैं, आपका सोल सेटिस्फेक्शन है कि आप ठीक कर रहे हैं, यू नीड नॉट टू बॉदर. और सबसे ज़्यादा आपके जो सराउंडिंग्स, जो नियर आपके बहुत क्लोज जो आपके सर्कल में हैं, वो अगर आपके साथ हैं, उनका बहुत बड़ा रोल रहता है. आपके हस्बैंड, आपके पेरेंट्स, आपके बच्चे, इन सब का बहुत, उनको ये मालूम है कि अगर मेरी वाइफ जो है रात को 12 बजे भी कहीं जा रही है, उनको पता है कि मेरी वाइफ ठीक है, तो आपको दुनिया कुछ मर्जी कहती रहे, आपको उसको बिल्कुल चिंता नहीं करनी है. तभी आप अपना रास्ता आगे निकाल सकते हैं. और पब्लिक एट लार्ज, मैंने आपको बताया, उनको मालूम होता है, वो आपका रिस्पेक्ट उसी के हिसाब से आपका रिस्पेक्ट होता है.
ओके, एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस?
मेरा नाम छाया गौतम है, मैं ईस्ट दिल्ली से बिलोंग करती हूँ. तो
आप अभी कॉलेज में हो?
हाँ जी, हिस्ट्री ऑनर्स की स्टूडेंट हूँ.
ओके.
तो अभी रिसेंटली मैं एक लिस्ट पढ़ रही थी, जैसे आपने बताया कि मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट इस बार वुमेन्स ज़्यादा हैं, तो उसके साथ में एक न्यूज़ थी, शायद किसी ने ध्यान नहीं दिया, कि करप्शन और जो मिनिस्टर्स आए हैं इस बार, उनमें सबसे ज़्यादा जो केसेस हैं जिनके ऊपर क्रिमिनल रिकॉर्ड भी सबसे ज़्यादा आए हैं इस बार. तो एक बार को ये भी कहा जाता है कि लाइक वो तो लड़ रहा है और वो ऐसा काम कर रहा है, ठीक है, वो वायलेंस वगैरह में है और उसके ऊपर क्रिमिनल केसेस हैं, अगर तुम्हारे ऊपर हो जाएंगे, अगर एलिगेशन फेक भी है या नहीं है, ठीक है, तो क्या तुम भी उतना कर लोगी? फैमिली से एक बार को कहती हैं कि लाइक वो उसका क्रिमिनल बैकग्राउंड है तो वो आगे जा रहा है, तो क्या तुम भी जाओगी या तुम भी ऐसे मर्डर करोगी क्या? तो इसलिए भी वुमेन्स को रोका जाता है.
Very sweet observation, I tell you.
नहीं बेटा, आई थिंक इन पे भी कोई केस नहीं है और मुझ पे भी कोई केस नहीं है. हम आगे जा रहे हैं बाय द ग्रेस ऑफ गॉड.
देखिए ऐसा है,
जी.
देखिए ऐसा है कि हम सबके ऊपर एक दायित्व है. हमें लगता है हम सबके ऊपर, आपके ऊपर भी है, हम लोगों के ऊपर तो ज़्यादा है क्योंकि हम लोग अभी राजनीति में हैं. राजनीति और राजनीतिज्ञ की परिभाषा बदलनी है. ये बहुत बड़ा दायित्व हम सबके ऊपर है. छोटी बच्ची जिन्होंने कहा कि वो क्रिमिनल रिकॉर्ड्स हैं, इतने इतने केसेस हैं, बिल्कुल सही बात है। और जब राजनीति की बात होती है कि एक कंटॉर्टेड सा फिगर आ जाता है, जो ये बता रही थी सुनीता अभी, कंटॉर्टेड सा एक पिक्चर आ जाता है, नहीं? तो मुझे लगता है कि हम सबका दायित्व है, लेकिन आई थिंक वी आर ऑल रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर आवर ओन कंडक्ट. If we conduct ourselves well, I think there will be absolutely no problem at all from the outer world. So I think we need to conduct ourselves with grace, with dignity. We should take everybody along, and we have to have appropriate behavior, appropriate within quotes, and I don't think there will be any problem whatsoever. Of course, things are changing. Things are changing. Now that kind of image is slowly going away. And you know what? We need not preach all these things that, you know, you should be like this, you should be like that. We should be an example. If we set examples, then I think all the bad elements will go vanish without us saying something to them. So I think things are changing, and let's hope for the best. In fact, if about 10 years after, if a mother tells her child that I want you to be a politician like her, only then I think I'll be successful as a politician.
I'm sure all of you will become role models. But my final question to Manisha is that this entire narrative of how India is very underrepresented, if you look at the global gender index, it figures somewhere like 151 out of 190. So what, according to you, would be 2-3 quick steps which the political parties, which as a government, they need to take so that the women are largely and well represented within Parliament and at the Assembly level?
So my view is actually very different from theirs. I mean, I think this parliament is especially spectacular because it's got women of substance like this. But if I go back to the 90s, when with the Advani Rath moment, there was a large representation of members of parliament from the same political party. At that point of time, we had the Sita Maiya of Ramayan. She was elected to the parliament, Deepika Chikalia ji. Now, I saw her as being a very reluctant parliamentarian. At the same time, I saw Sumitra Mahajan ji working on the ground, always there, somebody like Sushma Swaraj ji, building up her oratory skills. So what I could see was that here was a Sushma Swaraj ji who had done all these things when the world was not as good and it was really bad as all of you think. But what did she use this opportunity as? She had a tunnel vision that this is politics, this is what I've chosen as a profession, and this is what I'm going to do. She led a balanced family life. I don't think I've heard any of the negatives that is associated more generally. But I also saw someone who was in the television serial as a very reluctant parliamentarian. And there was a time when there was a vote of confidence happening in parliament where the government's stature was to be decided. Every vote mattered. And none other than Advani ji had to call up and say that, look, today you have to be in parliament. So I think the important lesson from this is that this voice that is coming, which is smiling and saying, don't worry, it's not a bad world out there, it's saying something else. It's saying the fact that here are women who are very confident of who they are professionally. For the moment, the best women in politics are those who actually have a double career,
Absolutely.
who prove themselves successful. It's a very tough race, it's not simple, who prove themselves successful somewhere else, and they've forgotten in their pursuit of that profession that there is a difference between men and women.
Absolutely.
So therefore, I'm the academic, I always systematically reflect on large scale data, and I can tell you that this systematic reflection tells me that especially the regions north of the Vindhyas need to do a lot more to push up the representation of women. Affirmative action is only one way. It can come along with the push in the professional arena.
Absolutely.
And I'll just leave by giving you one piece of statistic. In over 500, 600 public universities in India, do you know that barring the all only for women universities, there are, and the states of West Bengal and Kerala, there are not even 1 or 2 vice chancellors who are women in India. So that, now, when you look at the data, where do you find the women? You find the women suddenly as college principals, directors, maximum as hostel wardens. So basically you are recreating the arena.
Absolutely.
कि जहाँ पे nurturing care की ज़रूरत है, वहाँ महिलाएं ठीक हैं. बाकी जहाँ सत्ता में भागीदारी है, वहाँ
पर शायद.
So these women have so much responsibility. Quietly, they've got to break that rule and tell the whole wide world that look, we here as parliamentarians are just so equal that we don't even remember the discourse on inequality.
And on that
but
note,
the policy has to be a root of
absolutely. So you
equality.
really have to push in more women in the decisive role, and a big salute to all the three of you, including Manisha as well, for her contribution to the society. And as the famous quote of the renowned stateswoman and former Prime Minister of Britain, Margaret Thatcher, said, that if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. So we all have to strive for a better democracy, for women do not only have the right to vote and to elect, but to be elected. On that note, time for us to wrap this edition of The Pulse. Send us your feedback on the email ID flashing on your screen. You can also write to us on our Facebook and the YouTube page. Thanks to all my guests, Manisha, Agatha, Sunita, and Aprajita. It was wonderful having you on the program, and a big round of applause for this audience who asked such wonderful questions. Goodbye, and thanks for your time.